Hey guys, so today's gonna be a quick video on a big problem that I see in a lot of modern art, and it stems from using photography. So I'm gonna be talking about how to alleviate it, what causes it, etc. And it's gonna be fun. I hope you guys learned something, and let's get right into it. So the main topic today is why your paintings look harsh. So what I mean by this, it's difficult to explain how to actually describe it, but when you're looking at a painting and it just looks kind of like you took the sharpness filter up when you're editing photos in a usual painting app like Apple Photos or something, and you just put the sharpness all the way up, and it looks really kind of grungy and sharp. And I'll show you an image and what it looks like. And when you take a photo of a painting and it looks kind of like that, then you know that you've got an edge problem. Now, a big problem with painting from photos is that in order to paint from life, you have to understand fundamental things like structure and how light falls on an object, simply because there's so much to pay attention to and it's so overwhelming that the only way you can actually make art that's decently productive is by actually understanding those fundamentals. But with photography, it's a lot easier to kind of cheat, so to say. And I say that loosely, but what you can do is that you can just reference shapes essentially. Now you can do that when you're doing it from life as well, but it's going to be a lot more difficult to actually get something that looks volumetric. But when you're using photographs, you need to understand the way that form works and the way that light falls on form. And once you do that, you can start correcting your edges. So I made a video on edges a little bit earlier and how edges work. When light falls this way, edges are sharp. When light falls that way or on this form, it'll be soft. And I'll quickly review over that because it's a big problem as well. But essentially, you get a soft edge when a form is round. So if light is falling over a cup, let's say like something that's round, for example, like this. So if light's hitting here and it's just reaching barely over, the point when the light stops hitting the edge, it's gonna round over and it's gonna be a soft light. Whereas if you have something that's like cubical, like this little box here, when the light stops hitting on this edge, it's going to be a sharp edge, right? So it's light, dark, and the edge between that's sharp. It's not blended, right? And once you understand that, that's a very simple concept. But if you understand that and you start applying that to your edge work, you're going to get paintings that look much more realistic. Because I'm sure we've all had that experience where you go into a classical art exhibit or even something from the 18th, 19th century, something like that, and the paintings just look so realistic. They look like somebody's actually there. And then you look at modern art, and it just doesn't really have that quality. Now, a large contributor to that is the edge work. Another thing is, depending on the certain object, kind of like how different objects have different local values, things have a local texture, and that texture can actually affect the edge as well. So when you're looking at a mustache, for example, and I'll pull up like maybe a Sargent reference or something for this, the edge of a mustache is going to be soft because that local texture of the actual of the form is going to be made up of a bunch of different hairs, and those different hairs soften the edge between, let's say, like the skin and the actual stash, right? So when you're creating this stash, or maybe even a hairline or something like that, or maybe a blanket, really soft blanket, something like that, on somebody's fabric, you always want to make sure that you're accurately portraying that edge. And if you don't, and you make everything sharp, or you make everything just soft and sharp and in random ways that don't make sense and aren't communicating anything, you're gonna get this really weird effect. And I'll show one of my paintings actually as an example. So I did this painting of my two cats a little while back, and it has this issue with it. And it was bothering me, and I kept on taking pictures of it, and I thought the picture was a problem, but it was the edges. All the edges were off. And you can, a big problem too, and this gets a little more complicated, but when you get up close to something, all the edges look harder, and then when you back up, all the edges look softer, simply because things lose resolution as they go further back. That's why if you're looking at a mountain 14 miles away, you can't see individual grains of sand, obviously. But that also happens on a micro scale. It just as everything happens on a macro, it happens on a micro, everything micro happens macro. But when you're doing that, and you're close up to your painting and you assume everything's going to soften out when you back up, you want to be careful because it's easy to over assume that. So everything can look decently harsh up close, but it has to look correct from back up. You can't just assume that it's going to work. So when you're putting in a bunch of brush strokes, you want to back up, and then if it still looks harsh or it looks too soft or something, then you want to go back in, and then you want to alter that stroke, and then back up and make your judgments. So just it's a very typical painting rule. Just never make your judgments about altering your painting up close. Always make sure that you're making those alterations from afar, and you're looking from life or from a reference or whatever. You're looking at both in the same exact light and same size. And I'm going to show you some modern examples of what I'm talking about. And this isn't to pick on the artist or anything. It's just a very pervasive problem. But everything looks really harsh, and you'll know what I mean. Like, everything just looks harsh, right? But you can also go the other way, because harsh is mostly just having too many sharp edges. And there's this one Sargent quote I remember about. He was training this one woman, and she made a sharp edge or something on her painting, and he apparently smudged it out, and then he said, "That's disgraceful," or something to that effect. And the point is, don't have sharp edges everywhere. Your sharp edges are just kind of like your brightest brights, your brightest highlights. And it's crazy that we think about preserving our brightest highlights and our darkest darks for certain parts of the painting, and we're very aware of that. But when it comes to edges, people just go all willy-nilly. So it's important to save those sharpest edges just for the focus of the painting, like right in the face or something like that. And save those really soft edges too, right? Anyway, that was a quick video just on why your paintings might look harsh. I've been thinking about it for a little while now, and a lot of people have this issue. If you have any other questions, make sure to leave them down in the comments below. If you have any other future topics that you'd like me to cover, any tutorials, demos, whatever, etc., please let me know. I love reading your comments. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. Go make something beautiful, and all the best. I'll see you later.